Welcome back to That Guy Next Door's movie show. I'm Will, and today we're going to be talking about the top 10 movies of 2015. Now, I know what you're thinking. 2015 was a while ago. It's actually mid-February right now. I want you to know I also own a calendar, and I realize that. But for me, the Oscars are kind of the end of the year, so whatever. It's my show, I'll do what I want. So before we get to the actual top 10, I want to throw out a couple of also-rans. Just some really good movies that didn't quite make the cut, but I really enjoyed this year. So first in the runner-ups is Ant-Man, starring Paul Rudd. This movie was just real fun to watch. It was a different take on the superhero. I think most people have called it more of a heist film, which is pretty accurate. Michael Pena is great. It was a lot of fun to watch, especially after the disappointment of Avengers Age of Ultron. I know that was a pretty good movie, but I think by most people's standards, it was a bit of a letdown. Just a lot going on, not all of it good, so you know what I mean. Another great film this year was a little one. I don't know if you heard of it. It was called The Force. I don't know, some Star Wars movie. This one was really good because it was a lot of fun. It had a lot of nostalgia, but it wasn't just some kind of commemorative movie. It was a lot of fun and had its own story. Bits of it were a little ripped off of other Star Wars movies, I'll give you that, but I liked it a lot. Another runner-up was the Pixar movie Inside Out. This was a great movie that was just a lot of fun to watch. It had some really interesting characters and ideas, and it did a great job of showing the development of the human mind and how that works in a way that's understandable and interesting. I mean, not 100% scientific, sure, but just really easy to grasp. We don't get a whole lot of great horror movies, and that's why I really enjoyed this year's It Follows, which came out about this time last year, around February or so. I will admit that the third act does not hold up as well as the rest of the film, but that first two-thirds is just great. I really liked it. It's really spooky and just an interesting idea for a horror villain. Another pretty indie movie that made my runner-up list was Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. This was a great coming-of-age story, good high school kind of movie. Had some interesting characters, some funny dialogue, and some interesting situations. I really liked it a lot. Of course, one thing I really liked was Earl and the protagonist making these ridiculous rip-offs of other movies. It's really funny, and just kind of shows you where a kid's mind is at and how people develop into being such cinephiles. So that about rounds it out for my runner-ups this year. Let's move on to the top 10. At number 10, we have Brooklyn, which was a great 1950s-ish movie. Captures New York and Ireland really well, has some great scenery. The main protagonist is played by an actress whose name I, to this day, cannot say, but she's here, right here. Really great actress, does a lot of great movies, was great in Hannah and Atonement and a lot of other things. This was a heartfelt movie. It has sort of a BBC Downton Abbey feel to it as far as the cinematography goes and such. I really like the characters. The story does a great job of pulling you in. And it's something that's not high stakes. I feel like most movies these days have to have the world ending or a bunch of people in peril, and really the drama is just a little bit lost. But I really like this one because it's down to earth, it's small problems, but big problems to a person. It's a very personal movie. Number 9 is one of two big westerns this year. I'm talking about Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. Now there was a lot that went into the making of this movie, a lot of script leaks and rewriting and special premieres and whatnot, and I'm just glad we finally got to see the movie. It's got a great cast. You got people like Walton Goggins and Samuel L. Jackson, Kurt Russell finally making another movie. Some great performances by people like Jennifer Jason Leigh, and like most Quentin Tarantino movies, there's a lot of blood and a lot of danger, all in a very tight space. The cinematography is great, the winter atmosphere is just wonderful, especially if you live in the South like me. Not a whole lot of snow here, so it was interesting to see that. I wouldn't rank it as high as a lot of other Quentin Tarantino movies, but it's at least in the middle of his pack. Another movie about tight spaces, Room. This is a very endearing and heartfelt and sad movie. It's about a woman who gets abducted as I think a late teenager, and she ends up raising a son in this room that she's basically being held in by her abductor. And at first, you get to see it through the kid's eyes mainly. You basically get to see the wonder of a child trapped in this really small room. He's making friends with lamps and bugs and all kinds of little things that we really wouldn't even think about in our daily lives. And it's very emotional. There's a lot of big moments. I don't want to spoil anything, obviously, but just some really good moments that are very endearing and tough to watch, but also really good to watch too. Next up is Sicario. This is a fantastic crime thriller with Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro, Josh Brolin. It's a really good cast. It also has great cinematography, just really good camera work all around. It's very tense. There's a scene at the U.S.-Mexico border that is one of the tensest scenes of any movie this year. Really had me at the edge of my seat, and I love the performances. I really think Benicio del Toro should have been nominated for this film in Best Supporting Actor, but we can't have it all. So at number 6, we have Creed, which is the latest Rocky Balboa movie. You know, old Sylvester finally realized maybe I'm not in the best shape to be a boxer anymore, so we're passing on the torch to the son of Apollo Creed, whose name is Adonis, played by Michael B. Jordan. Kind of like movies like Star Wars and other big franchises, this movie has a lot of nostalgia to go with it, but it also brings a lot of new things to the table. Jordan is great as Apollo's son. He does a really good job of making his own character. You know, this isn't just Rocky again. It's actually a different character coming from a different angle. There are a lot of similarities between Rocky Balboa and Adonis Creed, but this movie does a good job of showing different paths for similar characters. There's some really good performances by Tessa Thompson and obviously Sylvester Stallone. I'm really hoping Sylvester Stallone wins the Oscar here in a few days, but we'll see what happens. It's important to remember that this is only Ryan Coogler's second film. His first one was Fruitvale Station, which got a lot of acclaim. His second one, a Rocky Balboa movie, and he knocks it out of the park. One of the biggest scenes of the year, up there with that Sicario border scene, is one of Adonis's fights is filmed all in one shot. Here, director Coogler moves the camera around for one big long take for the full fight. You get the ringside action, you get the stuff going on in the center of the ring, obviously, a lot of crowd shots, but it all works together in one shot. Really good moment there. Coming in at number 5 is Adam McKay's big Wall Street movie, The Big Short. This was a lot of fun because of the big cast with Steve Carell, Christian Bale, Ryan Gosling. I mean, you got all kinds of names in this movie. I mean, you got Margot Robbie just sitting in a bathtub for no reason. You got the guy from New Girl. I mean, it's a big cast. But what makes this movie so memorable is the way Adam McKay approaches it. This movie could have had Aaron Sorkin all over it. Just a lot of snappy dialogue, you know, West Wing meets Wall Street. But the team behind the movie goes a different direction and plays with it a lot. There's a lot of funny little scenes here and there. It breaks the fourth wall a lot. But on top of doing all these new and maybe risky things, it also tells a really good story and has great performances, especially from Christian Bale, Gosling, and Steve Carell. For a movie I didn't really know a whole lot about going in, it really paid off for me and made for a good afternoon movie. Alright, at number 4 we have Ex Machina, a movie with Domhnall Gleeson, Oscar Isaac, and Alicia Vikander. This was another early film from last year. It was up there with It Follows as far as the best of the first half of the year. This is a great science fiction movie. It does a lot to play around with technology, where we're headed, what it's going to do to humanity, where humanity meets technology. Some really interesting characters and concepts in that film. And it doesn't hurt that it's very entertaining. The performance by Oscar Isaac is also up there with Benicio del Toro. Kind of wish it had got a little more love at the awards season, but at number 3 is the journalistic thriller Spotlight, and I use thriller a little loosely. It's a very interesting investigation, but thriller's a little too much. The film is really more of a drama. It plays out pretty slowly over the course of several months. We get to know these different investigators who are taking on the case. You got Michael Keaton's character, Mark Ruffalo, Rachel McAdams, John Slattery. What makes the film work is that they don't go for the super Hollywood approach. It doesn't play into all these big shouting matches. It's not Aaron Sorkin. You know, no offense to him, but that stuff gets a little old. Not only does the film stay pretty grounded, but the characters are very believable too, which is really what you should be going for in this kind of a movie, 9 times out of 10. Each stage of the investigation builds a little more momentum here than there, and it really builds up to a nice finish, but without the big Hollywood moment. Coming in at number 2 is the second Western of the year, The Revenant. Time will tell, but it looks like Leonardo DiCaprio is finally going to get that Oscar. This film tells the story of a man who's left for dead by his partners. After fighting off a grizzly bear and fighting the elements, he finally gets the chance to avenge himself. And the one he's going against is played by Tom Hardy, who is a phenomenal actor who finally got an Oscar nomination for this movie. The film runs a little long. It's about 2.5 hours, but It's very beautiful, has great characters, great performances from DiCaprio and Tom Hardy, along with a few others. It has some of the most breathtaking scenes of any film this year. I might even say it has the best visuals of any film this year. Alejandro Inarritu, boy did I butcher that name, is a great filmmaker and just brings a lot to this film as far as the visuals go and the storytelling. Using natural daylight, this movie sets itself apart from most Hollywood-style westerns. Last but not least, we got Mad Max Fury Road. Coming out in May, a lot of people didn't think it would stand up to be one of the best films of the year, especially going into it, but boy, did this film pack a punch. From outrageous characters to amazing set pieces, this film really did a whole lot with such a simple plot. It's basically one big long car chase, but it is very well shot, has some great characters, and probably the most amazing action scenes of this year. I don't think going into 2015 we thought Mad Max was going to have the best action scenes of a year where we have a Jurassic Park movie, a Star Wars movie, a Fast and Furious movie, and a whole bunch of other stuff. George Miller is a true visionary. I look forward to whatever films he comes up in the rest of his career. Very good work here. Love the film. Love Tom Hardy in it. Love Charlize Theron. So that is it for 2015. In case you didn't notice, this is a different format than the last few videos we've put out on this channel. We're not walking away from the whole parody thing, but we are doing a little bit of restructuring in how we want to make videos. In the near future, we're hoping to bring you more film reviews and hopefully, eventually, put out some original content of our own and have our own films. But we're still a little ways away from that. Anyway, that's all for this episode of That Guy Next Door's Movie Show. We'll catch you next time. See ya.